going on, guys? Threat Level Midnight here, and if you saw the title of the video, talking about the trusty Glock 17, specifically the 4th generation 17. And if you don't know your Glock history, the 4th generation is kind of the least significant generation. It's been discontinued recently. And this one's just been sitting around. I've had it for maybe 12 years now. And it's just been sitting around my safe, so I'm wondering, hey, what can I do with this thing to make it relevant again? It's still a good gun, shoots real accurate, it's always been reliable. I probably have 30,000 rounds on it over the last 12 years, which isn't much compared to other guns that I shoot. However, it's been nothing but good to me, but it didn't offer much more over the improvements from the Gen 3 to the Gen 4. I mean, they changed the grip texture, they switched to a dual recoil spring, maybe they have a bigger magazine release, but still need to send the slide out to get an optics cut on it. And it just still has that just kind of Gen 3 feel, especially with the finger grooves on it, which they got rid of with the Gen 5s. The back straps are nice. That was the introduction, the 1st generation with the introduction of back straps. That was cool. But other than that, it didn't do much for you. You know, the things that people cared about on the Glocks were like, hey, give me some extended controls, give me, you know, the MOS or like an RMR cut, maybe some front slide serrations if you're into that. And Glock didn't really change much with the Gen 4, so today we're going to see what we can do to make this thing relevant again. Alright guys, so we can see our Glock on the workbench here. I have the TrueGlow TFO, the tritium, and the fiber sights on it. I thought they were cool for a long time, and then I realized like the dots on them are so bold it was hard to get like a precise aiming point. And you can see the finish is kind of faded on this thing. So the first thing I'm going to do that's kind of the biggest upgrade is I'm just going to swap the slide right out. I'm not going to bother sending this thing off to get cut. So what I did is I ended up getting one from the folks over at Armory. I really liked the detail and the workmanship that they put into their slides. And it's cut for an RMR already. It's really nice. It's got some windows, it's got front slide serrations, and it looks really nice. And like I say, it's got the cuts in it already. So let's go ahead and get this thing open and take a look. So this is the Legion series slide for the Glock 17 from Armory. And what you'll know right away is that, like, hey, if you look at their website, this is it's for a Gen 3. So what they just introduced recently is this adapter plate so that you can run a Gen 3 slide on a Gen 4 Glock, and basically this piece right here takes up the extra space on the dust cover. I'll show you guys that in a second, but I thought that was really cool, so it kind of pushed me towards the Legion slide that they started making. But you can see it's a really good finish, really, you know, nicely made, and I think this is going to look really good with the other upgrades I have. So let's see what else I have. The next up is a stainless steel barrel from Lone Wolf. This is going to be a host for a comp that we're going to put on here, and basically no thrills about it, just nice stainless steel barrel, and it's going to be a host for the Agency 417 comp. This is the 2-port version. And again, when I bought this comp, and I've had the barrel and the comp for a while, I thought I was going to renovate this Glock a long time ago. But they didn't make one for the Gen 4, it was all for the Gen 3. So what I had to do was go through NDZ and got a Gen 3 rod and spring, a reduced weight spring, and it has an adapter to fit in a Gen 4. But now I can just run it off of this Gen 3 slide, which is perfect. So I have Lone Wolf barrel, I have the stainless steel guide rod, 13-pound spring, the 2-port comp, and that Armory Legion slide. And then I have a TLR 1 HL to throw on there, and I'm going to put a Vortex Venom red dot. I also have an optics plate for it that I'll show you guys in a minute, and then just some polymer, you know, suppressor height sights, just because they're backups anyways. I'm going to be primarily running this thing for matches, so no night sights. I don't care if they're metal or not. I just need something in case my red dot goes down at a match. So something I wanted to show you real quick is this is the slide that's been stripped, and I'm going to throw it back on the frame here, and you can see that the bottom of the slide fills up the dust cover, and it has this Gen 4 and kind of like Gen 5 big huge dual recoil spring right here. So it takes up this big area, and you can see that the guide rod, like a Gen 3 guide rod, just isn't going to play through that. You're going to need the adapter, which I do have. But if we throw a Gen 3 slide on, like the Legion, and you're seeing this fit in real time, so you can see that huge gap right there. So they made that little plug right there. So let's see how much of the gap that plug takes up. So you can see this little piece right here, it really just drops straight on. It just kind of sits flush in there. And now it gives it the size of a 4th generation slide. So let me get this thing fitted up to the frame. It's going to be hard to keep in there without the recoil spring in, but we'll see if we can just mock it up real quick. So now you can see that it looks just like the dimensions of the Gen 4 slide. So that's really cool, and that was a huge plus for me when they came out with that adapter. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try the Cross Armory Legion slide because they offer the adapter that I could just get in-house. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take the internals off of this slide, and I'm going to put them in this one. I'm going to do it off camera because YouTube's been stupid lately about modifying guns, so I don't want to get this video banned or taken off, so I'm going to do it off camera. The other thing that I'm going to do is, if you see on the Agency 417 comp, it has a little segment right here where you can push your front sight further forward, which is great because then you have the sight radius of like a Glock 34. So I'm going to install the front sight on the comp, and then we'll go ahead and get this slide put together. Alright guys, so here it is. Here's the suppressor height sights, that Legion slide, the Lone Wolf stainless barrel. I love seeing these windows right here. Those are really cool. And that Agency 417 comp with the 2 ports on it. And you can see that I have the front sight chalked way out on it. Stainless steel guide rod and a 13-pound spring. This thing looks pretty darn cool, and what an improvement over that old school Gen 4 slide. I can't wait to shoot this thing, but next up, I'm going to throw a red dot on this thing. Alright guys, so here's the finished product, and again, sorry that YouTube's stupid and doesn't like showing the installs. If you need something demonstrated for you, I'll make a separate video showing the install, but for this one I'm just going to keep it just showing the final product. But you can see, thing looks pretty rad now, and I really look forward to taking it out to the range. So that's going to be the next part of this video, is let's get this thing out to the range and see how it stacks up. But specifically, I want to see how it stacks up against this Gen 5 Glock 34. So this one's not ported, it's not comped or anything, and you can see if I hold these things up next to each other, the Glock 17 is now just a hair longer with that 2-chamber comp on it. But we'll see which one of these things handles recoil better and seems to stay on target more. It's just more shootable in general. We'll stack them up together, so let's go out to the range and check it out. All right, so we made it out to the range, and what I want to do first and foremost is just make sure this thing is reliable. We did a lot of work to it and took it from a stock Gen 4 to what it is now, and I'll just do a quick recap, is that we swapped out the slide for the Cross Armory Legion slide, which then allowed us to mount a red dot. So I have a Rival Arms plate that goes from RMR to the Doctor/Vortex footprint. All my RMR optics were spoken for, so it's kind of this odd looking tall plate. A Lone Wolf drop-in stainless barrel, Agency Arms, the 417 comp. I have a stainless steel guide rod and a 13-pound recoil spring. And then I'm accustomed to shooting with TLRs anyways. And then the holster that I'm using today, because this is kind of an odd build, and say what you will about Blackhawk, but I kind of like the Omnivore because it attaches to the TLR. But what I did recently is I got an adapter plate that allows me to put Safariland QLS gear onto a Blackhawk holster. So now I can use my standard gun belt and just run this holster straight out of it. And later today I'm going to see how this the 17 stacks up against the 34, and I'll just swap the TLR and I can run it on the same gun, which is great. And this one's got a lot of Cross Armory stuff on it: the drop-in trigger, the mag release, the pins, the mag well, the extension, and then the Cross Armory Shadow red dot, which is the RMSC footprint. So I couldn't get that one on this one, and I didn't want to take it off anyways. But I got about 1,500 rounds out here today, and it's going to be split between just regular 115 grain Winchester white box and then 124 grain Spear Lawman, just a full metal jacket bullet as well. We'll see if the gun prefers one over the other, but what I'm doing is I'm just doing some 3-gun prep. I'm shooting a match, and the plan was to shoot this the Glock 17 at a match this upcoming weekend. Just need to make sure this thing's reliable. So like I said, I'm just going to put 1,500 rounds through it, make sure it does what I want it to do, make sure it's accurate, and then we'll go from there. So first things first, just going to zero this thing real quick, and then we'll just get in some drills. Off camera, I shot some strings at 25, the first target by itself. I shot at like 10 yards just to get my rough zero, and then I fine-tuned at 25 on these other ones. The gun shoots real tight, but I will say that I had some problems with the gun short stroking at first with the 115s. I haven't tried the 124s, but what I did is I just tore it down. The thing was bone dry. I didn't grease it up after putting it together. I just want to see how it would run, and after I greased it up, I haven't had a malfunction yet, but it's only been a couple of mags, but that's why we're out here, so we're going to give it you know, 1,000 more rounds today, and we'll see how it does. All right, so what I'm gonna do right now is I'm just gonna run consecutive mags out of things. I wanna make sure it's reliable since I did have that short stroking issue. So I'm just gonna run through mags on steel right here and see if we can induce any malfunctions or prove it to be reliable. And so far so good. We'll keep running mags through. So something I want to address real quick, and maybe you guys saw it on one of the reloads, is when I went to hit the slide release, and this isn't an extended slide release, I like them flatter because sometimes I induce malfunctions, but when I went to hit it, it's just a little bit stiff, and I think that's just because we have a brand new finish on a brand new slide, and they just need time to just kind of work together. So I'm imagining that as the day goes, we get longer in the day and get more rounds on the gun, it's just going to keep getting more and more smooth as the slide breaks in and kind of melds with the barrel and the other parts. But let's keep shooting. Back up, all I'm going to do right now is just go back and forth on some steel and just continually running full mags through on this thing just to get a feel for the gun. Just kind of want to bond with it a little bit, get a feel for finding my red dot and the different trigger I got in here. It's just kind of a stock Gen 4 trigger, so it ain't great. All right, so in that string we had one malfunction, and it looked like it ejected a live round. And here it is. And we'll take a look at that here. Looks like it was a light primer strike. And it could be that lightweight recoil spring in this thing. Maybe not completely going into battery, but we'll go ahead and see if we can get this thing to fire. Oh, and in fact, that was just a Winchester white box dud. How about that? So not the gun's problem at all. I'm glad we diagnosed that. Next thing we're going to do is run some kind of modified build drills. We're going to be at 15 yards. I don't really want to shoot the steel much closer than that, but we're going to use the C-zone steel. And after that last drill, you might be thinking, hey, this guy kind of sucks. He missed a lot of shots. But if you can see the steel, I don't know if you can see it, but to the left of the paper targets, that steel circle is like a 2-inch steel circle. So if your fundamentals aren't on point, you're going to throw that shot. And then the next one over is like a 3-inch circle. So they're very small. And obviously I need to tighten that up, and that's why I'm out here. But let's go ahead and run some build drills at 15 and see how we do. And that was 239. I think I can run it faster. I just need to be better at picking up my dot. All right, let's do it again. Ah, and pulled two at 238. .230. .230 again. Pulled one at 214. I'm kind of finding my breaking point here. .232. So right around that 230 range is kind of my breaking point. I'll push further later in the day today, but you can see ran through a lot of mags and a lot of drills, no malfunction. So things looking good so far. So next thing I'm going to do is just work a little bit of throttle control. So I'm going to start firing 3 rounds on the C-Zone steel and transition over to that little 2-inch guy. I need that the most, probably just focusing on my precise shots and working my trigger fundamentals instead of just slapping the trigger like I do at close range. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. .312. .253. .264. Pulled the shot on that C-Zone. .292, and you can see that I'm landing all my precise shots no problem, but I'm going a little bit too fast for my own good on the C-Zone. .362, gotta clean it up. That one was clean. .239. .264. .242. And I'm going to have a reload on this one. .580 with the reload. All right, guys, so off camera, I've done some more shooting, and I put about 500 rounds through this thing so far. And the only malfunction we had after greasing the thing up was that misfire, and that was clearly an ammunition problem, not a gun problem. So far this thing's shaping up. The cross armory slide is fitting in just fine. And what I was really worried about was that Gen 3 to Gen 4 adapter that you put on the front of the slide when I first installed it. And I was wondering like how that thing's going to stay on, if it's going to catch on anything. And that was going to be my biggest concern. But so far it works flawlessly. So after shooting 500 rounds, I said it before, I wanted to test how it stacks up to the Glock 34. Now the difference is if you're shooting a pistol match, the comped gun is going to put you into the open division right away, where this one will still keep you in limited optics because it's not ported or comped. So that might be appealing to some people because open division is really competitive. And if you're shooting against true open division guns, the Glock isn't really going to be that competitive. But what I want to see is it a viable contender against a Glock 34? And see how it does. Now the Glock 34 does have a better trigger in it, but it feels a little bit different. I've been shooting a lot out of the 17, and it almost feels like my slide is kind of angled up. So we'll see how we can do. And if you remember on the bill drills, which is what I'll shoot right now, I was kind of hitting my breaking point at around 230, where I could consistently get them in 230. So let's see what I can do with the 34. So that was 222 with a miss. Again, that's my first shots broken off the thing. We'll clean it up. .228, still with a miss. I'm gonna land all of them to get it to count here. All right, 225. And I'll go ahead and put a fresh mag in here. .213. A little bit of hitch on the draw, 230. So you can see now I'm kind of crushing the Glock scores, or the Glock 17 scores, or times anyways. And I really kind of credit that to the Cross Armory trigger right there. It's so much more crisp than that 4th gen factory Glock trigger. But I think maybe I'll run another set of bill drills with that Glock 17 and see how we do. But this gun it performs really well. So it's hard to say that the 17 is better at this point, but I would like to put one of these triggers in it. All right, so you saw what we did with the 34. I want to give the 17 another redemption run here and see if maybe I just got better at shooting throughout the day. So let's go ahead and see if we can beat that 34 time. .214. .204. Nah. With a reload, 447. That one was on track to be under 2 though. Okay, so I think the verdict is maybe I just got better at shooting these drills throughout the day, since I've got 600 rounds through the gun now. But I'd say, man, this thing really holds its own, especially against that 34. Now, will it hold its own against other open division guns? Nah, I'm still going to do it anyways because it's fun. But so far, really digging this thing. Let's keep shooting. So the last thing I'm going to do is just run through kind of a mini stage here. I'm going to start at the first cone and run 2 rounds on paper, run back to the second cone and shoot across on the C-zone steel, 2 shots C-zone, 1 shot small focus steel, and then move to the final cone, 2 shots on that 10-inch round, and then 1 on the 4-inch round. All right, guys, last thing I want to do is just run that 124 through there. It shoots 115 just fine with the spring and combo that I got, but I'll go ahead and run through a box or so, a 124, just to see if it feels any different. And that felt pretty good right there. All right, guys, well, I just want to wrap this video up right now. So I ended up putting 800 rounds through it today, not the full 1,000. I got a place to be later. But man, I'll tell you what, adding the Cross Armory Legion slide gave this thing a whole new life. Being able to add a red dot to it, and then that in combination with the barrel and the comp, I mean, night and day different. So another great product from Cross Armory. But if you're wondering, like, hey, can my Glock 17 be viable? Absolutely it can. And if you bought all this stuff at once, it might cost you some money. But you can buy it in pieces. I'd start with the slide and then go from barrel to comp. And well, I slide red dot and then like barrel comp and like recoil assembly and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, it shot just as good as that Gen 5 Glock 34. And I had a lot of fun doing it. So I'll run this thing in a match next weekend and see how I do.